At the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva, it was DA, 3 public health officers, and 2 secretaries. That was it. He never had more than 150 paid employees in the field for a global campaign that went from Brazil to Indonesia. And most of those 150 paid employees were young people like Peace Corps workers from the United States and other such organizations from other countries. They were dedicated, they were young, and they thought they could change the world. And they did. I'm here today to tell you a story. This is an incredible story. It's about one of the greatest scientific and humanitarian achievements of all time. It's about the eradication of smallpox. It's the only disease ever eradicated by human effort. And more specifically, I'm going to talk about the gentleman who led that 10-year World Health Organization effort, Dr. D.A. Henderson. Now, I met Dr. Henderson for the first time in 1999. And have had the extraordinary honor of working with him. In January of 2005, DA and I had just completed a 2.5-year project working on international public health. And it was a long, tough grind, and so there was a little sort of a celebration dinner at a hotel down in Washington, D.C., and after the dinner was over, why DA and I were sitting in the bar having an adult beverage. And almost as a joke, I said, you know, DA, someday somebody ought to make a movie about you and what you did. And, you know, you were pretty young when that happened. I was just sitting here thinking about who should play the young DA. And I said, I think Val Kilmer would be a really great choice. And he kind of smiled, and I found out later he didn't know who Val Kilmer was. He doesn't. This will be great if Val Kilmer played me in the movie, you know. But and he said, what? He said, that's okay, but he said, as long as Nicole Kidman can play Nana. And that's his wife. Well, what started out as a joke in the bar in January 2005, 3 years later, turned out to be a screenplay. Now, I'm a reasonably successful writer, but I had no clue how to write a screenplay, so I hired a woman who was a graduate of UCLA Screenwriter School, and so all of a sudden we had a screenplay, and then you say, now what do we do? I had no clue how Hollywood worked, and believe me, it's different than Washington, D.C. Makes things here look simple. I then had probably one of the luckiest occurrences of my life. The Ford Foundation sent me out to Los Angeles to work on a Homeland Security project. And the first evening there, at a little reception, I was introduced to a big-time Hollywood producer. And his last project was he wrote and produced The Breakup. Some of you may have seen that with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. It was a Universal Studios #1 moneymaker in 2006. But several years before that, Jay, you know, he can make money, a lot of money in comedies, romantic comedies. But he wanted to do something that would inspire young people, that would make you feel good when you came out of a theater. And he created a company called Inspire. When he read the screenplay, he said, this is something that needs to be made. So we're in the process now of doing that. It's a long, painful process, I'll tell you. It'll be several years before you can go see it on the silver screen, but I'm going to tell you part of the story today. But I want to do more than just tell an entertaining story. I want to give you some practical information you can use when you leave here. Because the leadership story of Dr. Henderson is extraordinary in what he had to overcome. And there's some very good lessons learned in there. You know, in the 10-year effort, his annual budget between 1967 and 1977 was never more than $2.4 million a year. Jay and I will spend more money making a movie about the eradication of smallpox than he spent actually eradicating it. He never had enough people. His boss did not fully support what he was doing because his boss didn't think it was possible. I need to tell you just a little bit about smallpox. Smallpox is a disease that terrorized the human race for 3,500 years. We found Egyptian mummies with the scarring on their face from the smallpox. According to the World Health Organization, in just the 20th century, it afflicted 1 billion human beings. This is one of the most painful diseases we've ever known. You have incredibly high fevers. You're sick for 2 weeks. Out of the billion afflicted, 300 million died. Boil. What you don't see is they go down into your mouth and throat. Can't eat or drink. If DA were here today, he'd say, well, those are pictures of normal smallpox. I don't even show you the ones of hemorrhagic smallpox and flat smallpox. That is the cover of the World Health Organization magazine from May 1980. That's why the name of the movie is called A Good War, because we, the human race, won the war over variola virus. It's the only disease we ever eradicated. No child, no parent will ever have to go through that again. by this incredible effort led by Dr. D.A. Henderson. Next slide. That's Dr. Henderson today in his office that we share over in Baltimore. Just one of the most extraordinary human beings that I've met. His book will come out in June. It's called, most appropriately, The Death of a Disease. And I've been reading it as he's been writing it all along for the last year and a half. And like I say, he never had enough money. He never had enough people. At the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva, it was DA, 3 public health officers, and 2 secretaries. That was it. He never had more than 150 paid employees in the field for a global campaign. They went from Brazil to Indonesia. And most of those 150 paid employees were young people like Peace Corps workers from the United States and other such organizations from other countries. They were dedicated, they were young, and they thought they could change the world. And they did.